Camo Dave News. We got some news here from The Hill, a newspaper there in Washington, D.C. Actually, it's at Capitol Hill News. Anyway, gives us all the news about the government. The Bureau of Land Management has seen an exodus in its staff. They've lost 87% of their staff. Apparently, former President Donald J. Trump had decided to move the headquarters of the Bureau of Land Management out to Colorado, to a little town. Well, it's not a little town. It's a medium-sized town, Grand Junction, Colorado. I think that's near where Wandering Jimmy had his transmission problems. Wandering Jimmy there back late summer, early fall. Anyway, it's a pretty area. But Trump wanted to ordered the movement of the BLM, Bureau of Land Management headquarters from Washington, D.C. to Grand Junction, Colorado. Grand Junction, Colorado is not near a major airport. It's kind of isolated. You know, it's not even Denver. You know, you're way out in the mountains there. So, but apparently, even though Colorado is a beautiful state with hiking and camping and beautiful mountains and everything else, more than 87% of the Washington-based BLM employees at their old headquarters there in good old Washington, D.C. decided to leave the agency. So, you know, they lost 87% of their staff. Only 41 people agreed to relocate, while a staggering 287 either retired or left the agency before the end of 2020. Okay, so that's the headquarters staff. Now, the BLM in total employs more than 10,000 people, but that was, I guess, their major staff. Anyway, so and they're also to spread. They were not only going to be moving the BLM headquarters people, also to other offices around the West. Anyway, so the Bureau lost a tremendous amount of expertise. Those were the very seasoned people, said Steve Ellis, who held the highest ranking career position at BLM under the Obama administration. The numbers confirmed my worst fears. I hope we can get some of them back. So it looks like Mr. Biden, our new president, he's going to probably, my guess is he's probably going to move reverse that order and make the BLM headquarters back in Washington, D.C. Critics say the move by Trump was a way to dismantle an agency at times, apparently, the BLM, according to Trump's people, stands in the way of development on public lands, particularly for the fossil fuel industry. And we've known that Mr. Biden, since taking office now, has done a lot of, shall we say, preservation work for federal lands, canceling the Keystone Pipeline, banning drilling on government properties out in the West and stuff like that. So he's taking a step back from what Trump was going to do, more oil development, mineral development on the government lands. So we're now seeing a battle going on with the BLM is kind of being the political football. You know, Trump is trying to basically shrink the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, for various reasons. Grand Junction is a town of 60,000 people, 4 hours away from any major airport. I imagine that would be Denver. And the top officers there, they're career Washington people. They don't want to go out to, western Colorado, right? The Interior Department is going to now work with the BLM career staff to understand the ramifications of the headquarters move and determine if any adjustments are going to be made, the agency said in a statement. So, yeah! The Bureau of Land Management is an agency within the United States Department of Interior. It was established by Harry Truman way back in the 40s. And according to Wikipedia, it's now headquartered in Grand Junction, Colorado. And now the whole thing is most BLM lands are located in 12 western states: Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Utah, Washington, and Wyoming. So why should the headquarters of the BLM be in Washington, D.C., which is way off in the eastern part of the country? There is a logical reason for, why don't you put the BLM's headquarters in the West, in Grand Junction. Now maybe Trump should have put the headquarters in maybe Denver or Phoenix or someplace where, you're closer to airports and it's more of a metropolitan area, so that more of the people from Washington would, DC would relocate. Okay, if we're going from Washington, D.C. to Denver, that's, major metro areas. It's easy to find a new home, whatever. But putting it in Grand Junction, I don't know, maybe they should move it to Quartzsite. The mission of the BLM is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of public lands for use in enjoyment for present and future generations. The agency manages 221 wilderness areas, 21 national monuments, and some 636 other protected areas as part of the National Conservation Lands. So basically, if you are a nomad, what does this mean to you? Basically, it means that there's not going to be too much staffing going on at the BLM. If you want to go camping on BLM lands, which are government lands, there's going to be, for at least the time being, very few people out there to tell you what you can and can't do, right? There was talk, there was a new government mandate that Mr. Biden enacted on his first day in office, where you have to wear a mask on federal lands. However, that's in coordination with the CDC, Centers for Disease Control guidelines, which basically say that if you're out and about, not near anybody, you don't have to wear a mask. So people were wondering, well, on government property, which is BLM land, are we going to have to wear masks? Going to be required to it? Are rangers going to come by and require us to do that? It looks very likely that you're going to see fewer and fewer BLM rangers, law enforcement, security people, federal people out on BLM lands, at least for the time being, until they get the staffing back up at the BLM. Now, this was a thing. The reason that Mr. Trump wanted to move the headquarters was basically kind of knowing that a lot of the agency's personnel were not going to go all the way out to Colorado. They're Washington people. So that was a way of shrinking the BLM and reducing its influence. So right now, if you're a nomad, you can pretty well be assured that the staff at the BLM, if the BLM is managing your area, campground area, or the land you're camped on, their staffing is going to be way down for the foreseeable future until I presume Mr. Biden will get the BLM built back up again and probably move the headquarters back to Washington so the staffing can come back, and maybe they'll get the older people back. The wizened staff will come back. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the latest there. The BLM is kind of being a political football from Mr. Trump, handed over to Mr. Biden, and now what's he going to do with it? It's fourth quarter and goal. Fourth quarter and goal is there going to be a BLM touchdown? Is the BLM going to get restored? Should the BLM get restored, or should it be allowed to wither away? And less federal government control over those, mainly Western lands that the BLM controls. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. All right, BLM. There will be a BLM in our future, but will it ever be as big and strong and authoritarian as it once was, if it ever was? We'll let you know. We'll let you know what's going on with the BLM. But right now, it's kind of shrunk. All right, we'll let you know any more as soon as we know it here on the Camo Dave News Channel. If you got a news tip, send it to Camo Dave. Send it to camodave@gmx.com and put news on the subject line. RV stuff, camping stuff, BLM stuff, National Park Service stuff, whatever you want to cover. We even want to give us some links and whatever. All right, folks, that ought to do it. Thanks for watching. Vlog Undo.